Hello there! Do you ever give yourself a reward or an incentive to help you complete a project or reach a goal? Well, this is something I have been trying out to help me make progress on my tarot deck design project. Stick around to see which bits I've designed and what I've given myself as a reward. Hi, I'm Sally and welcome back to my channel Vaudeville Manor, House of Art and Tarot. Now, if you've been watching my recent videos, you will be aware that I have a growing collection of unopened tarot decks. I've put them aside for incentives to help me design each part of the deck, so obviously the major cards and then each of the suits. I am really pleased to say that I have finally reached the first milestone, which is to complete all of the designs for the Major Arcana. To be honest, I had the bulk of the designs for each card a couple of weeks ago, but I've been going in and just tweaking and adding details. Also, if you saw my last video, you'll be aware that I sort of reached a point where I was experiencing a bit of creative block, and no matter what I was doing on these designs, I wasn't really getting very far. So I did actually take a little bit of time out to do a completely different creative project, which is just to do a little bit of painting and have some time away from the digital illustration side of things, because I am working digitally for this deck. And I should also say, I forgot to mention in that video that whilst I was struggling with some of the ideas and getting to that last hurdle for some of the cards, my partner has been a great help in sort of talking through the ideas and coming to the cards with a new perspective, and helping me just reach that final hurdle and getting some really nice details. So I'm very grateful for the input that he has given me. He does have a degree in illustration, so he can sort of see things that maybe I've missed. You know what it's like when you're working up close with something, you sort of get really absorbed and sometimes you don't step back to see the bigger picture. So that has been a really great help. However, I do think it has been worthwhile spending a little bit more time on the designs, and they have definitely evolved from the original hand-drawn designs. And I have a video which goes through all 78 hand-drawn designs if anybody's interested to see how this has started out. Some of them have stayed quite true to the original design, but some of them have changed greatly, and it's been a really interesting design process. And I think now I've done the first set of cards, I've sort of got into the flow of how I want to work on the computer and how I'm going to start setting up the cards in future. And I'm sort of, each card I do, I'm adding to that sort of visual language and the visuals of that deck, and hopefully incorporating a nice cohesive way of displaying each card. And I think certainly for me, the most successful decks are the ones that have a very strong, clear visuals throughout the whole deck, which sort of ties it all together. And hopefully when you see the designs, you will see that too. And there are a few where I've had to sort of be quite creative with keeping it within the theme of the deck. Also, I've had to choose colour schemes and visuals which have possibly stretched my initial ideas for what I thought this deck was going to look like. Now, if you're new to the channel, you might not be aware of what I'm actually designing, and it's called the Tremendous Tuxedo Circus, which was predominantly inspired by my black and white cats and my love of practicing circus skills, and it all sort of came together. I will do a separate video, I think, on what these cards look like, because I think this is going to be a long enough video as it is. But I did promise in my video about my unopened decks that I would share with you my celebration and receiving the reward, and just do an unboxing of the deck that is my reward. So I'm sure you're all keen to know which one I've chosen. If you would like to know which decks I've yet to open, then I'll put a link up here. For everybody else, the deck that I am rewarding myself with this time round for completing the Major Arcana cards is the Rooted Woman by Sharon Blackie, and these are illustrated by Hannah Willow, somebody who I really like and admire, and she has a lovely Instagram feed with her designs. And interestingly, actually this week she's just announced on her Instagram that she's going to be opening up a physical shop here in the UK. I can't think it's Devon, but it could be Cornwall. Whatever it is, I'll write on the screen where it is. So if you're interested and you want to support a local artist and you're in the area, then definitely check that out. Obviously I'll be showing some of the artwork from the deck, so let's see what is in store. I have had a look, I have done a flip through on this. And they're really kind of stories, I think, that are embedded by folklore, being back to nature. And I can't actually get into the plastic. Here we go. So it comes in a really nice book, and it looks like it's going to be like a flip lid. So get this off. So yeah, there's really nice gold touch to the writing there. Really beautiful illustration. It says here it's a 53 card deck, and yes, there is, oh, okay, so yes, there is one of these magnetic wraparound boxes. Okay, oh, beautiful. So in the side here we have May the Rooted Woman, who were our ancestors, and the spirits and the stories of the land they live in guide us on our heroine's journey. So obviously really focusing on kind of feminine energy. I think, as we know, in this society at the moment, particularly in the Western world, it does feel like a very patriarchal way of being, and obviously we know it hasn't always been like that. So I think there are a lot of decks, including this one, which is to try and reclaim the sort of more feminine energies. And I think really a call to action for women to reclaim that, and guiding us back to being more natural beings. Women thrive better when they're in like more nature-based environments, and I know definitely my personal mental health is better when I spend time outside. And in the summer, if the weather is decent in the UK, which sadly it wasn't this year, I could quite happily sit out in the garden all evening, and I just feel like it recharges my soul. And I think this type of deck is definitely there to help us do that. And so there's a really beautiful guidebook, and this is a Hay House publication, and I'm just gonna have a little flick through. So there's quite a long contents. So we have an introduction, and then it says about the heroine's journey, which makes me wonder whether it's almost an oracle deck version of the Fool's Journey in tarot. And if we look, there's actually suits. So we have suit 1, which is places, suit 2, which is allies. We have suit 3, which is journey, and then we have some focus cards. So that's really interesting. I didn't actually realise that this deck had been split into suits. There is a starting off with a poem, and there's quite a big introduction which talks about the heroine's journey, which I'm going to be really interested to read. So yes, she says it's about a woman's path out of the wasteland of modern society to a place of nourishment and connection, and to a profound sense of both belonging to and responsibility for places our feet are planted. And so that's really fascinating. And then it goes on to talk about Western civilization, and then there's a little bit to talk about how the deck is structured. There's actually quite a lot of information in the front of this book, so that'll be fascinating to look at. There's also a section on interpreting dreams. I've tried so hard to keep a dream journal, and I just forget to do it in the morning, so maybe that will help me. And it looks like she's taken some ideas from Carl Jung as well, with that. So that is how much you get from pages. You get a sort of introduction and spreads and things like that, and then we have a nice black and white image here which introduces the cards. So we get a nice ribbon to pull the cards out, and of course they have got the little paper band around them. So these are the cards in the order that they come. Really interesting, kind of muted colours. Oh, this one's gorgeous with the bunny there and the wildflower meadow, real feeling of spring. As is the next card, which is Mountain. I do have quite a lot of decks now which have this real natural influence, or sort of returning to nature. I don't know why, I'm just drawn to these decks, and perhaps that's my subconscious or intuition just wanting me, urging me, guiding me back to a place that is more natural. And incidentally, over the last couple of years, my partner and I have sort of begun the process of not properly rewilding our garden, but definitely allowing our garden to become more of a wild space. And interestingly, we've got this card with a badger on. I do have badgers visiting my garden, as well as foxes and a whole host of birds, and it's always interesting because people always say, you know, if you have cats, and we do have a cat, as I've mentioned before, there are a lot of cats in the area, and yet we have an abundance of wildlife in our garden. I saw this card. I absolutely love this card. It's so evocative of something quite, I don't know, if you think birds are quite ancient, it has this primeval energy to it, and I'm looking forward to reading more about this card. Oh no. I will probably do a full review on this at some stage. But this is just me and my initial reactions. That's an interesting one. I really like this, sort of seeing animals and in the bubbles coming out of the cauldron. Nope. Looks like there's quite a lot of I don't know if it's specifically Celtic goddesses, but when I was flicking through the book I noticed that there was also the Morrigan mentioned in there. So I think this is going to have quite an ancient feel to it as well, which is very reminiscent of the Celtic Spirit Oracle, which I also have in my collection. But I suspect this will add an extra depth to that knowledge that I've gained from using that deck as well, because I think there's such an overlap and it's such a big topic. You need lots of books and possibly oracle decks to find your way through these ideas. I'm actually really pleased I went for this deck. It was sort of one of the ones that I liked the look of, and I knew I liked Hannah's style, but then I wasn't sure if I 100% wanted it. But the artwork is, yeah, I think it invokes definitely certain emotions. So, and I think this is going to be a really intuitive deck. Okay, so here is the wasteland, as mentioned in the introduction. So I think this is where a lot of us find ourselves, you know, the madness that is technology, social media, to-do lists, the idea of productivity and just not being allowed to have downtime and mental headspace. And I do feel that we have created a rod for our own back in Western society. If everything just slowed down a little bit, I don't think we'd have as much sort of anguish and anxiety in our lives that we sort of seem to have these days. And I think actually these decks are really, really important. And I suspect these will be a great meditation tool. Shape-shifting, how wonderful. Again, so we had the wasteland earlier, and this is reclaiming the feminine. But then it does acknowledge with this card, for those of you that maybe have looked into Wicca, that it's not just about feminine or masculine. It's actually a balance that we really want. And I think this is the problem. There hasn't been that balance of masculine or feminine energy. And it's how do we go about doing that? And then this is the image on the front of the box, rooted, because I guess that's what the point of this deck is to keep us or help us establish a way of rooting ourselves sort of mentally and physically. So I think this deck is stunning, and hopefully you will agree with me. Now, depending on what you believe or what you celebrate, it is the 31st of October today at the time of filming. So for those of you that enjoy Halloween or Samhain or maybe both, and so I have just opened my Season of the Witch Samhain Oracle. So I've probably be working with this for a couple of weeks. But looking at this deck, because I don't have the Yule edition of the Season of the Witch, and I'm thinking I'm going to be using the Rooted Woman nearer Yule time. For some reason the picture on the front here just kind of speaks to me of that sort of Yule energy, you know, where we're deep in winter, we're sort of resting and we're ready to regrow in time for, you know, spring. Obviously Yule being the darkest day, and we know that then after that the light is going to start coming back, and I don't know, intuitively it feels like that's a really good time to be working with this deck. But what do you think? Do you have this deck already? Were you as delighted as I have just been looking through these cards properly for the first time? How have you found using this deck? Have you got any tips? Comment below. I do like to hear your thoughts on these cards. I've now got the rest of the suits to design. I'm going to be going with cups, and I've already actually done the Ace of Cups, well, halfway through, and as always I will try and keep you updated. I will do a separate video on the cards that I've got, but until the next video, see you soon. Bye bye.